Many of you may know me, but my name is Paul Abbott. I'm one of the academic directors of the Wolfram Summer School, and I'm going to be talking about one of the tracks at that school, the Educational Innovation track. Okay, so for the last 7 years, the Wolfram Summer School has included a track for educational innovation, and I'm going to give a brief overview of the school and highlight some of the education presentations. What I'm going to talk about is the education presentations published on the Wolfram Community. And the last point here is I hope convince you, the educators, to attend a future Wolfram Summer School, because I think it's a great experience and one that you will appreciate. So why come to the Wolfram Summer School? So I'll talk about just the school itself rather than the educational innovation track first. Why I think the school is excellent, an excellent place to develop and implement educational innovation. Firstly, you have great mentoring. This year for the Wolfram Summer School, Mads Barami, the director, introduced the idea of co-mentoring. So every student had more than one mentor, and I think that worked very, very well. About half the mentors were local, half were remote, and I think that also worked well. And a number of them were Wolfram Research developers. So you have access to experts in the technologies that you're working with. Another point is that the school, Stephen is an active participant. He basically meets with every student at least twice, I think, and provides guidance on the project and review of them. And his input, along with that of the mentors, is really high quality. I think for people there, you get, you're interacting with, in the case of the educational innovation track, with other like-minded educators, people who want to innovate, who want to change the way things are done, who want to improve things. And that interaction is very powerful. You also have in the case of the educational innovation track, basically a 3-week program. 1 week is training in the technology, and 2 weeks are working on the project and presenting it. So you get in-depth training in Wolfram Language and in development of technologies built upon the Wolfram Language. And you also get a number of lectures on computational thinking and on specific applications of Wolfram Language technology to education or particular areas of technology. So I think these are all good advantages here. So, long slide. So let's go to the next slide. So the goal of the school is to help you quickly develop educational tools using Wolfram technologies. And I think this is an important point, that the focus of the projects, and I'm going to highlight the word, is to change the way people learn and also the way you teach. So there are many, many ways that this can be done. And I think to highlight this, perhaps some of the examples that I'm going to link us to will indicate that. So a bit about the school. How has it run? Well, up until 2019, the school was, an in-person school held at Bentley University in Waltham, Massachusetts. But of course, COVID came along, and so for 2 years, the school was fully virtual. Personally, I didn't enjoy it as much as I had with the in-person school, but there were still some great projects and great project outcomes, so it was still a useful experience. This year, it was held in Champaign, Illinois, where most of the attendees at this talk are at the moment, and it used a hybrid format. About half of the attendees were international and remote, and about half the attendees were in Champaign. And some of the mentors were also remote, and it worked pretty well, I think, as a hybrid format. It's very good. For 2023, it's scheduled to return to Bentley University. And if you go to the site, so let's just bring the site up here, the Wolfram Summer School. Up the top here, you will see the scheduled dates are up the top, and I've linked you directly here to the Educational Innovation track. And on this page, let me enlarge that because it'll be hard to see otherwise. But basically, what is covered in each of the weeks is highlighted there, and I'm not going to go through that in detail, but it's on the link from the page that we're at. So next year, it'll be back at Bentley University in late June, early July, and I'm definitely looking forward to it already. So what do you do at the school? What is expected of you? Well, there's basically three components that each student, and many of these students are academics themselves, are expected to produce. One of these is to write a computational essay about the project that you're doing. Not every student does this. Another component, which is sometimes appropriate, is creating a repository submission. So this could be a function, it could be a Packlet, it could just be a notebook that you've worked on, and in some cases, in slightly different areas of the school, there's neural nets and there's the data repository. And one thing that is definitely required of all the students is essentially, while you're doing your project, you write a blog on it and you publish that as a notebook on the Wolfram Community so people know what you were doing and what you've achieved. If you want to have a look at former student outcomes, you can go, a quick way of seeing this is the Tumblr page. And so if I go to that, I already have it open. No, I don't have it open. Let me just open that link. So, I did have it open, I think, yeah. So this is the Tumblr page, and you get an idea of the most recent projects. And some of these are from the physics track. Some of these are from the educational track, and you can just scroll through and get an overview of the sort of projects. And the pictures are designed to help attract you into any of these projects to find out more. So there's an exciting summary of those. And one I can see, this one here was one of the educational innovation track submissions, and you can look at those in your own time, but there's a good summary of them available on the Tumblr page. Also, all the students, all presentations, which now, of course, be interactive notebooks, are published on the Wolfram Community. And if you go to the Wolfram Community site, if you search for, the string is perhaps not completely obvious, but if you search for Wolfram Summer School 22, this will restrict it to last year's projects. And if you filter by education, then you can see all of the educational innovation projects from last year. And you can, of course, change those search parameters and look at other years. So these were some of the projects, these were the educational innovation projects from last year. And you can view any of these and see the full notebooks. And I'm not going to do that now, but I'll just make one mention. John McNally, who's the host for this session, who's going to speak a bit later, was a student at the most recent summer school, and his presentation is given here. So you can have a look and see what he did at summer school. Okay. And you are all at the Wolfram Technology Conference, and if you're at this talk, you're probably most interested in education. You can just search for the education tag at the technology conference, and indeed, if you do that, you find, minimize these a bit, you find my talk, which is now, it's got the education tag, and you can find all of the other ones there. So you can do a search. If you do a search for the education track, you can find out all the ones that you might be interested in. I'm sure that you've all done that, but it's worth just having a look at the range of those that are there in this current conference. Okay. So one of the things about educational innovation is for all the educators that are here and attending this talk, you all know, if you've done it for yourself, that trying to develop a course, particularly if you're developing it from scratch, is a very time-consuming exercise. And one of the things I think that is important, particularly in the Wolfram language and the Wolfram environment where you have all these tools, is to avoid reinvention. And how can you do that? Well, you can take advantage of the resources that are out there. And one, for example, I'll just highlight, for example, is that the demonstrations website, which if I follow this link, takes you to the demonstrations website, you will have all been there and you know about the site. What is not so well known is that for any particular topic, so let's just choose physical sciences. I'm a physicist. I'm going to choose physics. I'm going to choose, I don't know, pick a topic, mechanics. And I could have picked one of physics, but there's a bunch of topics here. Now, if you want to use any one of these demonstrations in your own lecture materials, I'm not going to describe it here, but I can add it to the notebook for later, is you can embed those demonstrations, not just copy and paste. There's a way of embedding demonstrations directly into your lecture notebook. And an example of that is, I'm trying to remember the name now, Kevin Rice is a co-author of a book on electrodynamics, and many of the examples in that book, which are available on the Wolfram bookstore, are essentially embedded demonstrations. And so it's a very powerful way of constructing lecture notebooks for presentations, which include high quality demonstrations within them. A couple of other things, which I'm sure you'll be aware of, but the computational thinking initiatives, Conrad Wolfram's involved with that in particular, and you can use some of their ideas. Of course, because Wolfram Alpha is built into Wolfram language, and particularly notebooks, you can use any of the Wolfram Alpha constructs, and there is also the Wolfram Alpha Notebook Edition, which you can use to as an educational tool with your students. And finally, it's just worth mentioning that MathWorld, if you go to the MathWorld site, and so if I do bring up the MathWorld site, if I look for a particular topic, say geometry, algebraic geometry, pick a particular topic, algebraic geometry, a big random one, that's not a good one to choose. Let's try conic sections. If I try conic sections, what you will see here is this important, you can download a notebook related to that. And so that often gives you tools very quickly related to all the materials that are shown within that particular topic. So that's another useful tool to avoid reinvention. There's a lot of learning resources out there. I've just listed these just to summarize them. You know, if you're trying to get computer science students interested, well, there's a fast introduction for them. The elementary introduction is a brilliant place to get started, and I think you can use that one in high school without any issues. The documentation center is very, very powerful, and I use it all the time. The challenges are a good source of material. The programming lab. Also, for teaching a bunch of topics, the Wolfram screencast and video gallery is useful, and there's also Wolfram U. And I'll just mention the last bit is that, for example, the 2017 and 2018 Wolfram Summer School lectures are on Wolfram U, so you can just directly go to them. They haven't, unfortunately, yet included all of the more recent years, but they are great resources and you can access them immediately. I briefly mentioned repositories. Here's a few that I think nearly everybody here would be aware of, but the data repository can be useful. The function repository is very useful for teaching certain topics. There's a new thing, the Packlet repository, which I've submitted to recently, and I think is a powerful tool. And there's also the Notebook Archive. So these are worth searching for. If you're teaching a particular topic, you can search in the Notebook Archive to see whether other people have done lectures in that area. And all of these last ones I think should be familiar to most of you, but I've already mentioned the Wolfram Community. There's some very nice examples, the staff picks, the Wolfram blog, and I've got a link there which you can follow to some more resources. So I'm getting near the end of my presentation because I wanted to leave a little bit of time for questions, but I just wanted to talk about the student experience and the the program director of the Wolfram Summer School is Mads Barami. He was a alumni from 2017, and he's now the director of educational programs and outreach manager there. And I think his responses to his experience there, well, I'll let you read it, but he liked the dorm style life again. And I think I enjoy this too. Meeting an international community of people who have got a strong interest in the Wolfram language is a very powerful reason to go to the school. Why you think others would enjoy it too? Well, in Mad's case, it was improving his coding skills, but I think he did much more than that at the school. His project was very impressive, and I think not true for all the students, but it basically changed Mad's view about what he wanted to do with his life. So I think that's a pretty powerful advertisement for the school. So a more recent graduate, which I've already mentioned, John McNally, and is the host of this session. He attended. So I've asked John, I'll get John to speak for about 5 minutes in a second on his experience, but I won't do that right now. I'll just finish with my last slide. And just go to my last slide. So some points for discussion and input either in the chat or email to me or discussing with John or Mads at the conference. I just want to mention, as I think it's obvious to anybody who's tried it, true innovation is hard. Sometimes a barrier at your institution may be just the cost of it. It may be the infrastructure that you have. And clearly my own experience was within the institution, you need support. If you don't have that, it's just not going to happen. And I have found through hard experience that convincing others that my idea was a good one is not always easy, and took many years in many cases. The other thing that I found in particular was if you try and make your technology immersive, you're using it in my lectures, or as I was in my lectures, my lab classes and exams, there's a lot of difficulties to be faced there. I think I personally resolved most of those to my own satisfaction, but I don't believe I have a general solution for everyone. And just as a general question for everybody here, how should one best implement computational thinking? And I have a feeling that the answer to that depends upon many factors, the type of the course that you're teaching, the topic, the subject, the quality of the students, the background of the students. There are many issues, but just some topics for discussion. So I'll now go back to the previous slide, which is, so if John would just like to take the microphone and the screen, and if he'd just like to describe his student experience at the most recent Wolfram Summer School.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm really happy to see so many people here for the education-themed talks because there's a real need for educational innovation. Stephen gave a talk on Monday at the University of Illinois Computer Science Department, and I had the opportunity to interact with some students afterwards who are current undergraduates at University of Illinois. And several of them were saying, we've heard of this project-based learning thing, and we would really love to use project-based learning in our classes, but they don't seem to do that for some reason, right? Sort of rote drills, things like this. And we know that there's this software out there that lets us solve real-world problems, and we would really like to learn more about that in our classrooms. And we couldn't agree with them more. I couldn't agree with them more. I know everyone here couldn't agree with them more, right? And so, engagement with something like the Wolfram Summer School education track is a great way, as Paul said, to meet other educators who are of like mind about that. It's a question of implementation and coming up with great exemplars rather than sort of that other step that Paul was alluding to of overcoming institutional inertia at various places and sort of implementing these things at scale, right? that's the first thing I wanted to say, is that, the students themselves really feel the need for this and want it. So people who are excited about doing it, now is a great time to get involved with programs like this and make it a reality. So as for my experience at the Wolfram Summer School, I definitely could not recommend it more. So yeah, I had up till that point not been in a room with as many interesting people doing as many interesting things all at the same time. This is my first tech conference, so I look forward to many more things like that. But the atmosphere at the summer school was fantastic. No matter what track you were on, you had the opportunity to interact with people from across disciplines, so that you were able to, talk about, oh, you're using this neural network for doing an interesting problem in natural language processing. I wonder what the educational applications of that would be, and vice versa, right? I got some great advice about the design of user interface from someone who'd spent a lot of time thinking about that in terms of augmented virtual reality. So this interdisciplinary ability, which, I was very fortunate that it was a year where we had the hybrid format. And so we could also have the in-person, just like this conference, interactions, which sometimes brings sort of a magic to them that I think Zoom doesn't always necessarily quite capture, even though Zoom is a great, way for being able to get things done in light of the need for that. But so that was the second point I wanted to make, was that the interdisciplinary collaboration is something that your students will really appreciate when you come back to the classroom, and not only have, exciting examples, but also have met people and know people now who work in these exciting fields. And so when your students have a question about something that might be outside your domain of expertise, you can, quickly message someone that you've met before and have a great working relationship with. So that's another great thing about coming to something like the Wolfram Summer School. The third point that I wanted to make was that it genuinely is project-based learning, right? At Wolfram, there's a very long history of figuring out how do you take an idea for a project and turning it into something really useful, and doing that in a very energetic sort of a way. And seeing how that works in practice also provides great inspiration. Aside from any of the particular projects, just seeing the methods that are used in order to have this sort of mentorship relationship from someone who has done things like this before, someone who, maybe has some expertise that another question I wanted to perhaps anticipate is how much, Wolfram language knowledge do you need to come to something like the Wolfram Summer School? Well, the more that you know before you come, the faster you can hit the ground running. But what you really want to bring is your own domain knowledge, right? One of the things you learn at the summer school is how to do more and more exciting things with the Wolfram language. At some of the talks, which are on a wide range of topics, there were things that I had no idea that you could do in Wolfram language until the summer school. And I walked away from the summer school thinking, wow, I could use this software to teach anything and have really exciting examples. So similar to the other student experience that you heard, my experience at the summer school kind of changed the direction that I thought I wanted to push from, right? So before coming to the summer school, I was a classroom teacher. And after my experience at the summer school, I think, helping to bring other exemplars of, great classroom teachers into the forefront and help, with training in this technology is now the direction that I want to push from. So if there's any other questions about the summer school, what sort of things you learn there, if you know anyone personally who's an educator who is interested in bringing computation into the curriculum, by all means, please ask me or Paul or anyone else about that topic, and I'd be more than happy to chat with you about it. So with that, do we have any questions? And I can hand it back to Paul as well.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Paul.
Hi.
I was wondering how you would describe the different benefits that people would get from the summer school from different stages of their life. I know John was talking about being a classroom teacher, and a lot of the students were undergrads or graduate students, but I think there's a pretty big range of people who attend. Could you talk a little bit about why?
Right. I think I think that's one of the strengths of the school, that there is a range of people from undergraduates, graduates, postdocs, academics, people running their own companies. So it's a very wide range. But I think I found that the interaction between those groups was one of the strengths. My own experience, say, for mentoring at the last summer school was one of the educational innovation students was a high school teacher. Another one was a university lecturer who was doing her own PhD. Another one was a researcher in Pakistan. And the last one was in Bulgaria, and he was training mathematical Olympiad students. So I think all of them were at different stages of their career. And I've had people, I think the oldest attendee on the educational track has been in their 70s or getting very close to their 80s, and the youngest has been 18 years old. So I think all those groups had an advantage from the school. I hope that answers your question.